And in the war on terror, a prominent local Muslim organization is a strong voice advocating peace.
The Islamic Society of North America calls itself a mainstream organization committed to fighting the distortion of its religion. But the Eyewitness News Investigators found it has connections that critics say are tied to extremists. Investigator Angie Moreschi takes a look at the images in conflict on its mission.
Tucked away on the farmland of rural Plainfield, Indiana, is the headquarters to one of the largest Islamic organizations in the country, the Islamic Society of North America, or ISNA as it's often called.
Here we are, Muslims, young and old, men and women.
Its charismatic leader, Dr. Saeed Saeed, promotes ISNA as a mainstream organization of American Muslims.
America should be proud of this community.
He preaches family values, unity, and acceptance of all religions.
We respect Christianity, we respect Judaism.
Talk that is worlds away from the beliefs of Islamic extremists.
Allahu Akbar.
While ISNA is a well-respected Islamic organization, some charge it's also shown support for extremism. A national terrorism expert mentioned Indiana specifically while testifying before Congress on the issue of fundraising for terrorism. In his book, the New York Times bestseller American Jihad, Stephen Emerson dedicates an entire section to the Islamic Society of North America.
Portland, Washington, Plainfield, Indiana, Buffalo, New York. I could go on listing
Emerson
numerous
cites
other
Plainfield
cities.
specifically as a location that supports militant Islamic groups. He says ISNA's popular annual conventions attended by thousands of Muslims serve as a gathering place for some Islamic extremists to raise money and share ideas.
I think ISNA has been an umbrella and also a promoter of groups that have been involved in terrorism.
In our research, we were able to find about a dozen different individuals, charities, and organizations under federal scrutiny for possible ties to terrorism, linked in some way to ISNA. Ties sources tell us have also placed ISNA under the federal microscope. ISNA has provided convention booth space and helped to raise money for a number of Islamic charities later linked to terrorism by the federal government, groups like Holy Land Foundation. The U.S. government accuses Holy Land of funneling dollars to support suicide bombings carried out by Hamas. Its assets, along with those of several other Islamic charities, are now frozen, pending further investigation.
Allahu Akbar.
At this ISNA conference in Chicago, Saeed talked with us about the charity issue and says it was innocent support for what they believed was a good cause.
We were donating money according to the claims that they were making.
Do you believe those funds were diverted to things that you hadn't intended?
I have no personal knowledge. That's why we are dependent on the system.
Saeed admits ISNA is active in providing direction for Islamic charities, holding workshops and offering advice at its conventions, but says the ties end there.
We have helped in the past to establish these charities and relief organizations. They are not legally part of us.
I am not going to accuse ISNA of directly being involved in terrorism. I will say that ISNA has sponsored extremists, racists, people who call for jihad against the United States.
ISNA has shown support for Hamas leader Musa Marzouk, who was deported from the U.S. in 1997 and is on the State Department's designated terrorist list.
All the efforts to raise money for Musa Marzouk, a cold-blooded killer who's been responsible for the killing of dozens of people, they took him on as their poster child.
Marzouk thanked ISNA in this open letter of appreciation for support of his legal defense fund.
It doesn't hurt if you give a few words of support or if you give a few words of sympathy. So it doesn't.
But should you support and give sympathy to people promoting terrorism?
You have to say what support is. The issue is, do I get involved in some major campaign? Then it would be a problem.
Go ask ISNA whether Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad are terrorist groups.
So when you look at organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah,
Right.
Islamic
they
Jihad.
They are the products of that kind of environment. I mean, that's not us. That's
Do you
not
condemn
we.
them?
That's not we. I mean, we will condemn anything that wherever there is hate, whether they are Muslim, Christian, Jew, or whatever.
Saeed calls Emerson a Muslim basher who jumps to conclusions to create a sensation.
I mean, every Muslim knows him because he has dedicated himself to the demonization of Muslims.
That's exactly the MO of radical Islamic groups, to hide under the charge and accusation that those who criticize them are Muslim bashing.
There are people like him and there are others who are enjoying and wallowing in this kind of dirt. It's very unfortunate. What can we say?
Emerson has testified before Congress some 24 times and is a frequently used terrorism expert on MSNBC, but there is no doubt he is controversial. One case in particular raised the ire of many American Muslims when he speculated after the Oklahoma City bombing that it had the trademarks of Islamic extremism, and that also hurt his standing with some mainstream media outlets as well.
Now, Saeed talks about the relationships with some of these questionable people as a matter of degree. Why associated with them at all?
Well, he explains it like this. He says, if I never open the door to people with more radical views, then he will never be able to influence them and bring them more into the mainstream. But he is very conscious of the connections here, and in fact says in many occasions they are now moving away from them, especially when it comes to fundraising. And we'll have more on that tomorrow.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.